Okay, we're going to try a quick introduction just to see if this works. Um, this is going to be an introduction to dynascape. Like most computer programs, you'll see that it has file, edit, and a lot of typical things at the top. We won't use very many of those, but we will use a few of those. Across the middle here, you'll see some icons, and if you just hold your mouse over them, it should show you what they're doing. You can just kind of hold your mouse over each one and it should show you what that tool is in case you forget. Underneath that, these are your toolbars. The Quick Start has all of the tools that you would need to do their Quick Start tutorial. It has some drawing and some editing tools embedded in it. Most of the time we're going to be using these drawing tools, which I already have open. Red means that it's active, and the grayed out box means that it's not active. And you can click the edit tools, for example, and bring up the editing toolbar. So these toolbars can be moved around. They can be reshaped if you would prefer to reshape them. You can move them in any direction that you'd like and move them off the screen if that's what you want. You can pretty much move them wherever you'd like. We're not going to use a whole lot of the dimensioning tools or the advanced tools. We'll talk about those a little bit later on in the semester. These red things right here, red means they're on, are different things that are very important when it comes to how Dynascape draws things. Inference means that it will note the end and the middle of all of your various lines. So that's great if your drawings are small. When your drawings get very large, having that on uses a lot of memory. And unless you have a really powerful computer, you might want to turn that off. Constraints are which way the lines are drawn. So I can do none, meaning I can draw a line in any way that I'd like. So let me draw a line and you can see that I can move this around in any direction that I want. But if I turn constraints on, if I have orthogonal on, they will either go up, down, or left, right. They will go in no other direction. No matter how I move this mouse, they're going to go up, down, and left, right. That's it. If I turn it to horizontal, I can only draw a horizontal line. I can move the mouse in any direction I want. You can see me moving the mouse up and down, but it'll only go horizontal. If I turn it to vertical, same thing. Polar means you can do up, down, left, right, and a 45-degree angle. The default is 45 degrees, but you can change that. So if you go to set polar, you can change the angle. So if you are working with a lot of 30-degree angles or 75-degree angles, you can change that angle, but it defaults to 45 degrees because that's a really common angle that we use. We will get to copy and some of these other ones later on. It's just a question of whether you're copying something or simply moving something, but we will get to that a little bit later on. You can use the trash can, and when you turn the trash can on, you'll see that it highlights kind of a square box, and then you can just highlight everything in the box. Once it's blue, that's going to be active, and then you just right-click to delete everything. One of the things that you're definitely going to have to get used to is changing your layers. And you can see there's a lot of different layers. And I will often demonstrate things in the building layer because it makes a very thick, easily visible line. But each one of these layers is going to be a slightly different thickness and a slightly different color, may even be different patterns. So let me show you a border, for example. If you're drawing a border, you can see we've got a different color. Whereas if we're drawing a property line, A, again, it's a different color. And B, you can see it has the long lines and the dashes that we use in the landscape industry to designate the edge of a property. Porches. The colors don't show when you're printing things, but they work out very, very well for designers to be able to see what layer things are on. And it works out well for me to be able to grade your designs because I'll be able to see exactly what layer you've done things on. You can also turn the layers off and on as we get more advanced into Dynascape. You can turn the layers off, and that way you could see, for example, only the irrigation layer if that's what you wanted to do. So now I've drawn several lines and you can see all of the different colors. So every time you change a layer, and there are lots of layers, every time you change a layer, you get a different color, which is kind of nice because it does help with your designs. Most of our drawing tools will have a little box that shows up where you can do a specific length. So with polylines, it's going to be curves, for example. You can close it, meaning that everything is going to be, you can see how it makes a closed figure. You can smooth it, which means that instead of angles like that, you get curves. If you don't close it, you kind of go back and forth and you can get different curves and different angles. So you can do a lot of different things with it. Let me clear this out again. We can do rectangles and squares. You can insert a width or a height. You can insert a rotation, so you could draw it, say, at a 45-degree angle. And then when you draw your square, it's going to be exactly at that angle. So it's very, very powerful in that sense. We can draw arcs and circles. You can input the radius, or you can just start drawing. If you have a closed figure, like I have a circle here, you can have patterns, and then you can just click the pattern and it fills the pattern in for you. You can, if I change the layer to something different, so for example, I know that rocks are usually red. So if I change the pattern or change the layer that I'm on, I get a different color. That can help you as a designer determine what's going where. It automatically chooses everything to be drawn at the right scale for the scale that you choose. And the way to choose a scale is to simply by choosing a new piece of paper. So if I come up here to File and it says New Drawing, click that, and the first thing it's going to give me is a whole list of different sizes of paper and orientations of the paper. Landscape goes first, and the papers start out pretty small, and you can see you can get some fairly common scales that we use in the landscape industry. This program is designed for landscape. The paper gets bigger and bigger as you move down. So here's the 36 by 48, in other words, a 3-foot by 4-foot piece of paper. And then you get portrait. In other words, the paper being up and down. So if I were to change this to an 8.5 by 11, I just hit OK. It puts a new piece of paper. The dashed line is the edge of your paper. So you do have to be aware that you can't go over that line. And if you're doing a border, which you will need to do in all of your designs, then you definitely want to make sure that the border is inside that dashed line so that your printer prints those sorts of things. Okay, that's a very quick introduction. I don't expect you to memorize or anything. When we start meeting face to face, then we will definitely go over all of these tools individually, and you'll definitely have some time to play with them. But that gives you an idea of some of the things that you can do within Dynascape.